We good, Scott? Good afternoon and welcome to the Planning Commission meeting November 18th, 2024. My name is Christopher Walker, Chairman of the Anaheim Planning Commission. As a reminder to all these people here, Planning Commission meetings are now broadcast on all our channels, including the web and Anaheim TV Channel 3. The first order of business is to salute our flag. Commissioner Castro will lead us in the flag salute.
Please stand and place your right hand over your heart. Ready, begin.
Next, I will ask the Planning Commission Secretary to take a verbal roll call vote of all the Planning Commissioners.
Chair Walker,
Present.
Vice Chair Kring,
Here.
Councilman Lieberman,
Here.
Commissioner. Commissioner Lieberman, Commissioner Perez,
Here.
Commissioner Tran Martin, Commissioner Castro,
Here.
Commissioner Kelly.
Here.
We have a quorum.
Thank you. If you would please silence your electronic communication devices so they don't disrupt the proceedings, we would appreciate that. The doors at the back of the room are automatic. They open when you get close to them, and they don't close until you have walked down the hall. Please move away from the automatic doors and allow them to close. Today we have two public hearing items on our agenda. I would ask everyone who's going to speak on any item to please complete a yellow speaker card and give it to staff if you have not already done so. The cards can be found on the table at the entrance. When you fill out the speaker card, please identify the item you are speaking on and pick the appropriate checked box at the bottom of the form as either applicant, in favor, in opposition, or neither. In accordance with Planning Commission procedures and rules of order, speakers will be called forward in this order and then in the order received for each designation. Please keep your remarks as brief as you can. We are influenced more by the content than the length of your presentations. First, we provide an opportunity for any member of the public to speak on items of interest to the public that are within the subject matter jurisdiction of the Commission. Is there anyone here to speak at this time? Seeing no one, we will move to the public hearing. Prior to beginning the public hearing, I will ask the Planning Commissioners for any disclosures they wish to make regarding the items on today's agenda. Seeing none. Both items tonight include requests for the Planning Commission to recommend City Council approval for consideration of a future City Council meeting. Moving to item 1, it looks like we have Nicholas.
Good evening, Chair Walker and members of the Planning Commission. My name is Nicholas Barrera, Associate Planner, and I will be presenting the annual code update along with Sean Nicholas, Principal Planner, and Heather Allen, Acting Planning and Building Director. The annual code update includes amendments to provide clarity, create consistency of terms and definition, streamline approval processes, comply with changes in state law to existing regulations, amend code requirements to reflect current market trends, and support City Council strategic plan priorities. The attachments to the staff report for this item provides a comprehensive summary of the proposed code amendments, but I will highlight a few of the notable changes this year. The update provides consistency with state law, which permits ADUs both within and detached from multifamily dwellings and increases the maximum detached ADUs from 2 to 8 for existing multifamily dwellings, so long as the number of detached ADUs do not exceed the number of existing multifamily residential units. The update also provides clarification that multiple family ADUs would be subject to the applicable provisions of design, parking, and historic buildings, and that required recreational leisure area may be converted into an ADU no larger than 800 square feet unless the minimum required recreational leisure square footage can be provided. The update provides regulatory relief by allowing food sales from food trucks or trailers licensed by the Orange County Health Care Agency to be a permitted temporary use on private property in conjunction with an alcoholic beverage manufacturing business while adhering to operational requirements, including additional requirements when located within 150 feet from a residential use. The update provides regulatory relief by allowing Markets Large to have an outdoor display area for their products while adhering to operational requirements already provided for home improvement stores. The update provides clarification to existing regulations on trash generated from a commercial center to include requirements for bin load closure and cleaning, and adds a prohibition on donation bins in addition to outdoor storage. The next update provides regulatory relief by increasing the maximum height of fencing allowed within the required side, rear, or interior setbacks from 6 feet to 8 feet in all zones, and establishes an administrative adjustment process rather than a variance to review walls in non-residential zones meeting certain development standards and findings. Additional amendments provide clarity and regulatory relief with respect to parking lot lighting near residential, maintenance and removal of non-conforming signage, and establish a process for the automatic withdrawal of stale applications. Items that are more cleanup in nature, including providing clarification and updates for uses including veterinary services, automotive sales, and general offices. References to outdated review process are being eliminated. Staff recommends that the Planning Commission recommend the City Council approve the annual code update. This concludes staff's presentation. Staff is available to address any questions from the commission.
Oh, Amelia.
I have a question regarding the fences and walls. So the 6 to 8 feet, that's not for residential homes?
The current code does allow residential zones to be a 6-foot high fence within the required side and rear setback. This code update is allowing the opportunity to increase the height to 8 feet.
Okay, so this is across the city for everyone?
Across the zones, yes.
Okay, good. Thank you.
Okay, no comments from the public, I'm assuming? There's no applicant, so I guess I will close the public hearing and open it for any discussion.
Move the item.
Second.
Shall we vote?
Six yes votes, the motion carries.
Thank you. Second item is Sean, who's Sean's first presentation in a few years.
It is. Thank you. So, good evening, Chair Walker, Planning Commissioners. My name is Sean Nicholas. I am a principal planner here. Joining me this evening are Lieutenant Triplett, Lieutenant Moody, and Sergeant Cooper, and Veronica Amame, all with the Anaheim Police Department, and whom we have worked together collaboratively to develop requirements and procedures for a tobacco retail regulatory permit and regulations for the retail sale of tobacco. Tobacco use remains a leading cause of preventable deaths, and the overconcentration and clustering of retailers is exposing youth and vulnerable populations. Additionally, illegal activities frequently associated with tobacco retail establishments, including the sale of controlled substances, drug paraphernalia, Illegal weapons and unlawful gambling contribute to increased crime and negatively impact the community at large, particularly major corridors in the city. Currently, all tobacco retailers operate under the retail use designation, meaning that they are by right without any other review, and a tobacco retailer can open as such and remain open in most non-residential zoning districts throughout the city. Staff proposes establishing operating regulations and conditions for the retail sale of tobacco products, including a new regulatory permit. A regulatory permit is a process whereby use-specific provisions and review is established pertaining to public health, safety, peace, and general welfare. For example, massage establishments, smoking lounges, and entertainment are other uses requiring regulatory permits. This new permit will require annual renewal to ensure continued compliance with state law and to allow for regular interactions with and review by staff, including the Anaheim Police Department. The permit and associated regulations address tobacco as defined in the Business and Professions Code, which includes tobacco or nicotine products, including but not limited to cigarettes, cigars, little cigars, chewing tobacco, pipe tobacco, or snuff, as well as electronic devices that deliver nicotine or other vaporized liquids to the person inhaling from the device, including but not limited to an electronic cigarette, cigar, pipe, or hookah. New requirements would mandate a separation of 1,000 feet from sensitive uses, such as schools, community or recreation centers, and parks, and 500 feet from other tobacco retailers to address the overconcentration issues. Additionally, the sale of tobacco products and tobacco paraphernalia would be prohibited between the hours of midnight and 6 a.m., except by businesses categorized as automotive service stations, convenience stores, markets large, and markets small, as defined in the zoning code. The code amendment includes adding a cross-reference in the requirements for smoking lounges that would be applicable to those that have a tobacco retail component as part of their operations. With that, staff does recommend that the Planning Commission recommend the City Council approval, which would add the operational requirements and new tobacco retail permit to the zoning code. With that, it does conclude staff's presentation, and staff is prepared to address any of the commissioners' questions this evening.
Thank you. Let me clear my throat. Thank you, Sean. With regards to, so this permitting process is going to include gas stations, 7-Elevens, anybody who's selling tobacco products whatsoever? Or when I initially read it, I thought you were targeting, to specific tobacco shops.
Yes, you are correct, and that was the only actual locations that can sell tobacco products between midnight and 6 a.m. are places like 7-Eleven or automotive service stations, those convenience store locations, and things that, and facilities that meet the definition of markets large or markets small, as it is in the zoning code.
Okay, would that also include hookah lounges?
So smoking lounges that do have a tobacco sales component would require this application as well.
And they'd be restricted to the hours?
Associated with tobacco sales, yes, they will have a separate regulatory permit as currently required for the smoking lounge that will address their operational hours.
Okay, we have quite a few hookah lounges in the city. Do we have any that are operating after midnight, that this is going to affect their business?
Again, I don't have that information right in front of me, but I would tell you again that this permit, the tobacco retail sales, is separate from the smoking lounge operations. So the tobacco retail sales just has to do with the tobacco purchasing of cigarettes or cigars. It has nothing to do with their operation as a smoking lounge. That's a separate permitting process.
And maybe if I could just clarify, Commissioner Leeman, so to the extent they are operating a hookah lounge where a customer could also come in and purchase tobacco, shisha, et cetera, for consumption off sale, that would be regulated. So you could still purchase tobacco, smoke a hookah to 2 o'clock in the morning if that's what your operational permit allows. But if somebody was coming in off the street to buy a product to take home, that would end at midnight.
Okay, thank you for the clarification.
Sorry. Hookah lounges are currently regulated through the smoking lounge permitting process. That remains in place, and they are allowed to operate after certain hours. To the extent a hookah lounge also is dealing with tobacco products, because not all hookah lounges actually deal with tobacco products. There's non-tobacco shisha. And if they are in dealing with tobacco-related products, they will now need a second tobacco retailer's permit, and they would be subject to the same regulations as tobacco retailers unless they are exempted.
Leonie, you just confused me.
I'm sorry, and what I,
Okay, what I'm trying to really find out is, okay, so I've been to hookah lounges. I don't care for hookah myself, but my friends partake, and they're all partaking of tobacco. And you go in there and you buy the little cubes, they bring you your hookah, and life is good. I do also know that you can get it tobacco-less, but the majority of people who are going to hookah lounges don't want the coconut shells. So please be as clear as possible. Hookah lounges that are currently operating after midnight, can they sell their tobacco cubes to their customers sitting at a table and smoking a hookah after midnight?
not as currently drafted, because they would be engaging in tobacco retail, and that is prohibited. We have restricted the hours in the current draft of the ordinance. So no.
Okay, I have a problem with that. Thank you.
Okay. I have a problem with that. It's the Arabic community, for the most part, that does go to hookah lounges, and they don't even come to a hookah lounge before midnight. They start going in there 10, 11. They have their tea, which we fought to get them, and hookah. So if you order a hookah, you are buying the cube. You're not taking it outside, you're consuming it there. So how does that play into what you just said?
As drafted, we are restricting the sale of tobacco products. We are calling those tobacco retailers. So it's not dependent on where you are using the tobacco. It's the act of selling the tobacco product. And to the extent that a hookah lounge is selling a tobacco product, it would fall under the purview of this ordinance and the restrictions that, as they're currently drafted.
But you said unless they have a carve-out. As I heard somebody agreeing with me, hookah shops don't even open until 10, 11 o'clock at night when everything else is basically shut down. And I don't see the difference between, it's all going to be retail. They're going to get the cube, they're going to put it in their pipe, or I don't do hookah either, so I don't know the language, and they're going to enjoy it there. But if I go in, and most of the people don't go in to buy their cubes there, they go to the tobacco shops that sell a million different flavors. So it seems that we're punishing, we're trying to make this easier for businesses, but it seems like you're putting a hammer on these hookah bars. Can we do something here and now about a big question mark and go back to see if you can change it?
It sounds like the concern is wanting to allow on-site use of tobacco
Right,
products at
like on-site
the
drinking.
smoking lounges. And certainly, I would like to hear from the representatives of the police department as to how they feel about that. But I will say that our office did assist in the drafting of this, and we are concerned about treating similarly situated businesses the same. And carve-outs, while they're possible, they do need to be intentional and with a specific purpose and reason behind. So I hear you, and it is true, in response to Commissioner Lieberman, as currently drafted, the tobacco hookah after midnight would be restricted.
So their hours, so a hookah bar down the street has to close at midnight.
If they are tobacco retailers, yes. Not close, not close. They just could not engage in the tobacco
So-
retailing.
I don't understand why anybody would go to a hookah bar and after midnight at 12:01, they can't smoke hookah. And
Again,
does that make any sense?
they
really?
could smoke non-tobacco hookah.
Well, what if they bring in their own? They're not buying it. Can they do that without getting into trouble?
This ordinance doesn't regulate that. I don't know offhand, perhaps the planning department knows if under the smoking lounge ordinance, if customers are allowed to bring in their own products.
Because there is such a small markup on hookah that if you're closing down at 10, and you can sit there and talk to everybody and have a I don't even know what non-tobacco hookah is, and have a cup of tea, but what's the point? You could go to Denny's and do the same thing.
Again, I understand the concern, and I will say that when our office was looking at this regulation, and again, this was a city staff-initiated ordinance change, our concern was to treat tobacco retailers the same. We
But you're
did.
not. You're carving out hookah bars.
We're not carving out. The whole ordinance only addresses tobacco retailers
Which is a hookah bar.
and other smoke shops.
No, I get that point, but the hookah is where people go and relax and meet their friends and smoke. And if you're stopping it at midnight, there goes 2 hours of them being able to make money. And you're also isolating one particular community that is the most, who smoked the most hookah. You just put a sign out on the freeway, Little Arabia, and now nobody's going to come because they can't smoke hookah. Okay, I'd like to hear from the cops.
If I could ask Sergeant Cooper to clarify the police's position. As Sean mentioned in his presentation, this was a collaborative effort, and I think just to clarify what the expectation was, because I don't believe we were intending to curtail the hours of existing smoke shops. So we'll clarify that, and then we can talk further.
All right, I'm Sergeant Cooper, formerly of the Vice team. Now I work out with our quality of life unit. The intention was never to regulate the on sale. So we had talked about hookahs exclusively, and I know for us, we don't have an issue with the hookah lounge staying open and selling to their customers inside. What we're really trying to regulate is the off-sale side of these products. And I'll tell you, we have 13 hookah lounges compared to 50 smoke shops, over 50 smoke shops in the city. And the idea was really to regulate a lot of the smoke shops. Obviously, hookah shops and smoke shops are similar, and that's why we talked about in common businesses. So some things will carry over, but the smoke shops don't have the requirement to get a entertainment permit like the hookah lounges do, and different things that are regulated by them. So this is more for the smoke shops that don't have any other permits, is where we were really focused on our end.
Then that should say that in this zoning. You should have a carve-out for the hookah lounges, because they're already paying for an entertainment license, and there is no entertainment there. So if the 50-some smoke shops are your problem, focus on them, because you're going to have people lining up who own smoke shops. And I can see it now. You're going to get bombarded with all kinds of complaints. Not the least of which is one I mentioned, which I will not repeat. So what do we do?
If I can make a suggestion, certainly this is here for your recommendation. If there is a desire of the Planning Commission to make a recommendation that the ordinance is presented to you before you is not the ordinance you want to recommend approval of, then staff can take that direction, revise the ordinance, provide that information to council with your recommendation. That's perfectly appropriate. I will say that our office does need to look very closely at that, because it's the hope of the city attorney's office that when we do pass ordinances, they're enforceable. And we do have some concerns about as you put it, carve out. That said, we've heard you and we understand that business operations are different. The police department has also stated that they consider them to be different and a concern, and that wasn't the intent of this ordinance. So if we need to redraft, update, we can do so, as long as that's the direction that's given tonight.
I would like to make that the motion, because sometimes law becomes onerous when you're trying to help one group and you're picking on another group that you did. When you go to catch a tuna and you're catching the porpoises, that's what we're looking at here.
Okay, I think Amelia wanted to talk next.
Okay, so just to clarify, the hookah lounge would sell tobacco up until midnight, but they can stay open until 2 o'clock in the morning, right?
The way it's currently drafted, yes.
Okay. So the customers would have to, it's like last call, right? They'd have to get there before midnight to buy their tobacco that they're gonna smoke till 2 o'clock in the morning?
In theory.
I kind of agree with Lucille on that. If they're not the issue, but again, if a customer can walk in, buy it, like they're walking into a smoke shop, and I see what you guys are trying to do. If you don't include the hookah lounges, those customers are going to go to the hookah lounge, and that we're going to the smoke shops and buy it there and leave.
Well, I'll tell you that the customers for hookah lounges and smoke shops are two different customers. So from a police department standpoint, I would not be worried about people not going to the smoke shops and instead going to the hookah lounges.
Okay.
Again, our intention was never, this is more like a legal question. Our intention, we didn't have a problem with on-site sales for hookah till their permits up at 2 a.m. or whenever they close. We don't have any opposition to that.
Okay. Well, I agree with Lucille that we are kind of carving out that industry in hookah lounges, and there is going to be complaints. It just seems unfair. So if we're able to redraft that.
Yes, I think an option that, as I had mentioned in responding to the question, the intent was not to curtail the hours of operation for the smoking lounges to operate as smoking lounges. The reason that we included them in the permit, I think as you just stated, was so that we didn't create a loophole in a business where somebody could not go to the smoke shop and walk down the street to the smoking lounge that was still selling tobacco after midnight. So I think we would, an option for the commission would also be to recommend that it move forward to the council with direction to amend such that the smoking lounges would still be subject to the permit. Their hours for off sale would end at 12, but the hours that would be operating for on sale consumption would remain as in place per their respective regulatory permits.
Yes. I'll make that motion.
Okay.
I know. So does Luis, though he's ahead of you. Go ahead.
I did want to see, do we know the amount of tobacco retailers that have on-site consumption?
So anyone that has on-site consumption is going to be through a smoking lounge.
Do we know how many exist?
So most of the smoking lounges sell, whether it's a hookah or cigars. So I think like all but one may also sell for off-site.
13.
13? Okay. And then in terms, you said there's about 50 smoke shops, you said? And then do we know relatively what the hours of operation are there for?
So a lot of those are 24/7 right now.
Okay, and would we assume those like smoke shops to be designated like smoke shops, or are they essentially like liquor stores that also sell paraphernalia?
So as the code calls, it depends on what their business is called. We call it the little market, big market. So these are just smoke shops.
Got
So
it.
they don't fit any of those. And some of the discussions, just so you guys know, we talked about the guy who works graveyard, who just wants to get his smokes at 4 a.m. on the way to work.
Yeah.
We want to make sure that's still available. So we didn't want to stop the liquor stores. It's mainly the shops that are completely focused on tobacco sales.
Thank you. And then with it too, I know during the slides, there was pictures of products that are not permissible even by the state. Can you go into that and specifically kind of what we're trying to address specifically to this issue?
So I've been dealing with this probably for the last 6 years, is when I worked in Vice. During COVID, one of the things that came up is a lot of these gambling dens that we dealt with. And the police department was very active in shutting them down, but where they found a home was in a lot of these smoke shops. And a lot of them do the online gambling, which online is technically legal, but if you have a storefront where payouts are in and out at the actual brick and mortar shop, it becomes illegal and we prosecute for that. But a lot of the smoke shops, that's where that went, away from these houses to actually the shops. With the new regulations on tobacco, especially flavored tobacco, that's a huge thing that we try to get a handle on. So a lot of these places are non-compliant with the state laws. There's also items that are technically legal to sell, but we would like to regulate the sales of. Whether they call them incense burners or we know as meth pipes, they're legal to sell until someone puts meth in it and uses it as a vessel for ingesting drugs, but we would like to regulate that. And this gives us the ability to, while certain things would still be legal to sell, we know they're not a benefit to our community, and these are different things that we can regulate for us. So that's really the idea behind a lot of these.
Okay, perfect. And then I did want to address one aspect of section .080, which is the minimum age, and I'll just read it off since it's small. Minimum age for persons selling tobacco products and paraphernalia. No person who is younger than the minimum age established by state law for the purchase or possession of tobacco products or tobacco paraphernalia shall engage in tobacco retailing. What was the intention behind that specifically? Because I know like state law, right? If you're 18, 19, 20, you could work at a liquor store that handles alcohol and give it so.
Well, I think it fits with that because the age for tobacco is
21.
21.
Yeah.
21. So back in the past, it was 18. It just got bumped up to 21.
Yeah, but that's what I'm asking. Like, as an 18, 19, or 20-year-old, you could work at a liquor store that handles alcohol and be behind the counter and do that.
I think it should be the same as far as that goes.
What I'm trying to get at is, for the employees who work at these smoke shops, are they younger in age, or is there a reason why specifically, like, we wrote that into this, or is it just standard in the sense that we want to regulate it in that aspect as well, even from the retail aspect?
I would defer to Heather on that one.
This is just coming from the state law requirements on tobacco retailers that currently exist.
Okay,
It mirrors the state's requirements.
got it. Okay, perfect.
Okay, I was gonna ask Sean for clarification on the, you know, gas stations and 7-Elevens, et cetera, and their hours that they can sell tobacco, but Sergeant Cooper cleared that up and that basically they can sell it whenever they're open. So if we've, quote unquote, you keep using the term carved out a niche for these businesses, why is carving out something for hookah lounges any different?
And our office did deal with that question too, and it's because the markets are serving usually the adjacent residential neighborhood, and they are providing goods and services for the convenience of the residential neighborhood, whereas the smoking lounges are there for smoking. And our office thought that based on the information from the police department and the intent which was to still allow some retail sales, that we would not require, for instance, these local markets to put up a glass wall and lock it at midnight and whatnot. So it is a very similar issue, and it's one that our office will continue to work closely with staff as we prepare this ordinance to ensure its defensibility.
Okay, thank you. Just to make a comment that I would be very opposed to applying the ordinance as presented to us to hookah lounges. It would really, it would decimate their business. And the city is not here to do that sort of thing. I can understand wanting to get a control of the vice issues, the illegal drugs and that's the gambling, and going about this, but I don't think hookah lounges are a problem in that regard. I could be completely wrong, but I don't want to be targeting them or them being affected so drastically by an ordinance that sounds, I don't know. I'm not thinking of the words today, but I think you understand what I mean.
Okay, my turn. You'll excuse my ignorance. I don't know much about this area at all. So there's smoke shops, there's cigar shops separate from smoke shops, or are they one and the same?
There are separates that are just cigar shops, but some of them have a little bit of both. But we do have some, what we'd say like cigar lounges that are just specific for cigars.
And what hours do those generally operate?
I want to say that they fall kind of around the same as hookah lounges. We don't have very many in the city if I had to look. I can only think of one off the top of my head.
I don't believe we have any cigar.
Okay.
No cigar lounges? Okay. One? Would that?
I know that one is just simply cigars only. So I don't think they qualify as a cigar lounge. But
They don't smoke on site?
I'm sure they would smoke on the patio or out front where they're legal to, but they don't have a specific, and I know we don't have a permit for them, but they do smoke there, but as legal.
Okay.
We do have, if I could just, for the record, we do have a cigar-focused establishment, which does have a conditional use permit. So conditional use permits kind of predated the regulatory permit for smoking lounges. There are certain requirements when a conditional use permit is still needed for a smoking lounge, such as proximity to residential. So we do have a mix of, some have regulatory permits and some have conditional use permits.
And would this ordinance supersede that conditional use permit?
It would not, no.
Okay. Then, so what you're telling me is there isn't a business that's going to be affected in that category that exists today?
So again, the intent is that if there is a retail component, that they will get an annual, essentially, operator's permit. So in the cigar lounge example, they could, as written, be required to also kind of re-up annually for their operator's permit. They would still have their conditional use permit for the operations, the on-site smoking, all of those conditions. But the intent is, as Sean mentioned in his presentation, to be able to relook at the operations of the operator annually to make sure that everybody's remaining in compliance with state law. A conditional use permit gives a vested right to operator use and is more difficult to address when there are problems with the operations. So having the regulatory permit gives us the annual check-in for the operator.
Which seems reasonable. Okay, Lucille?
Thank you. Just curious, is this what Sacramento is proposing? The ordinance that you presented to us?
No, Sacramento has already adopted legislation requiring tobacco retailers permits from the state,
Okay.
mostly related to payment of taxes. But that law does allow local agencies
Okay.
to adopt their own regulations. We have not had one, and based on the information provided to the police department, the request is to adopt those local regulations for tobacco retailers.
Okay, thank you. Well, you started out saying that smoking is not a health, is a health issue and it's the leading cause of death and all that stuff. I don't smoke. I only have one dear friend who does, but a lot of people who I know smoke, they're very good about it. They make sure that if you don't like it, they'll move to outside or they'll do something. So for me, I don't find it a problem. It's kind of sounding to me like this is becoming the morality police. Are we looking to be the nanny state to get people not to use tobacco? Last time I checked, it was a legal product and a very expensive one with taxes coming into the city. Not that that's a good reason to buy it, but thank you. And so that's a concern of mine too. Are you trying to get people to quit? They can go to Garden Grove or Santa Ana and get it. So that's a losing argument. So what's the background that the police wanted this?
So I'll tell you, our goal is not to end smoke shops, not to limit smoke shops as far as being in the city. What we have identified is they have become some of the most dangerous and destructive businesses in our city when they are run outside of how we expect. Like I said, the amount of crime and the amount of different things that have gone on in a lot of the smoke shops, and we can give you examples of all the cases we've worked, is really what we're working. And if we really talk about beautifying the city, a lot of these smoke shops are the blight that we deal with. When they're not run correctly, they invite the criminal aspect into that community. And if you ask community members who live next to one of the smoke shops, again, that is not run correctly, because we do have smoke shops that are run correctly, and that's what we're shooting for, is to have a smoke shop that operates within the conditions that we want, that actually contributes to their community, not take away from it. But if you ask a lot of the people who live next to these places that are not run well, that are running foul of the law, doing things that are illegal, this is going to be a huge help to us as far as being able to put an end to that type of activity. We want them to have the business. We want them to thrive and sell and do great things, but we do not want them to act outside the law and outside what our
And I
expectations
think that's commendable. I really do. And then shut the businesses down if they're violating any of the laws. Get rid of them. But again, don't sweep in the porpoise when you're trying to catch the tuna. Thank you.
Okay, I'm going to second Amelia's motion, and it looks like Amelia still wants to talk, so.
I agree with you that smoke shops are a problem. The glass, right? That's what you're trying to move away, because that's what they go in there and get stuff for their drugs. Have you been to a smoke shop to see what they have? It's bad. And I get that. So I just want to say I support that part of it with the smoke shops. And I see the big picture on what, we're trying to do here, and we have to do that. It's not because they're trying to get people to stop smoking cigarettes. They're trying to move away from the drugs and protect the community and the neighborhoods. So with that, I'm looking for a second.
Second. Oh, well, I did too.
Can you repeat the motion?
So Well, are you going to redraft the ordinance?
So I think I would suggest that based on the discussion today, we would recommend, your motion is that the Planning Commission recommends council approval with an amendment to the ordinance that gets presented to the council to, as it relates to smoking lounges, only limit the hours for off-sale and not impact on-sale tobacco sales.
Yes.
Six yes votes, the motion carries.
Okay, that's it for those items. Do we have any updates, Scott?
We do, just a couple brief ones. So we will have 2 meetings left this year, December 12th and December 16th.
December 12th?
December 2nd, thank you. December 2nd and December 16th. The 2 items likely for each of those meetings, and we will be presenting the Planning Commission meeting calendar for 2025 at the next meeting for adoption as well. That's all I've got.
We are adjourned.
Happy Thanksgiving, everybody.
Happy Thanksgiving.
Ditto, I was going to say the same.
Yes.